Joining us now on the phone is Senator Jeff Flake, the other senator, of course, from Arizona. Senator Flake, thanks for being with us, first of all. Have you been able to speak with Senator McCain?
Yeah, I spoke to him a couple of hours ago.
And give us an idea of what his spirits are like. He's known for being a very tough guy. I can imagine he's thinking he's going to beat this.
Well, that's it. I didn't know the diagnosis when I called, and it was several minutes into the conversation about what was going on in Washington and the health care bill and what Arizona needed out of that bill. Before I asked him, how are you feeling today? And he mentioned something about, well, probably chemotherapy coming up. And then I knew that the diagnosis was back. So he's as positive as ever.
We know that earlier this week, Senator Lindsey Graham came out and said that he had spoken to John McCain. Of course, Senator Graham very close with John McCain. Many refer to him as his best friend. And Senator Graham said that John McCain seemed like the old John McCain again. Did you get that impression as well when you spoke with him? Well,
sure. And Lindsey is very close to him. I spoke to Lindsey this afternoon and this evening as well. He's obviously really, Lindsey's broken up about this. But in my conversations with John, since the surgery, have been great. He wants to talk about what's going on and what he's going to do when he gets back here.
Senator Flake, give us an idea of what John McCain means to you, his career, his war record, his long life of public service. It's got to be an inspiration for a lot of people.
Well, it is certainly for me. I came back to Washington first in 1987 as an intern in the Senate, and John was in the Senate already at that point, and so I've never known the Senate without John McCain here. And serving with him in the Senate for the past 4.5 years, and all the while I was in the House of Representatives, has been just an honor and a privilege. And traveling with him on the campaign trail when he campaigned for president, I can tell you, going to diners in New Hampshire with John McCain is an experience I'll never forget. But what he's done for the country is just immeasurable. As a Navy pilot and as a POW, and as a member of the House of Representatives and the Senate, he just. But let me just tell you, we're about to consider the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, which is handled by John McCain's committee. It's the one piece of legislation, the one piece of authorizing legislation that we do every year, and it's only because of John McCain. He insists that we give instructions to the military and authorize the programs, and so he's just tenacious. And the Senate won't be the same without him whenever he chooses to retire or is taken.
Senator McCain became the chairman of Senate Armed Services a couple of years ago, and I can imagine that's probably the one committee assignment that he covets the most. He's made it a point to spend Independence Day for the last several years with the troops, not here in the United States. What does it mean to him in his relationship to the military, given his family history?
Well, I can tell you, he travels more places, and for those who have traveled with him, overseas, he may be 80 years old, but you can't keep up with him. Nobody can. And the troops have come to expect seeing him at Thanksgiving in Afghanistan or wherever he may be traveling, whatever war zone at that time. It's just phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that really stands out about Senator McCain among many members of Congress, is that he travels more than anyone else, and it's really incredible what he's been able to do. Senator Jeff Flake, thanks so much for talking to us on the phone. Right now, we want to get to Congressman Andy Biggs. He's also on the phone with us. And Congressman, we're just reflecting about the breaking news today about John McCain being diagnosed with brain cancer. Have you been able to speak with him?
I have not been able to speak with him. I'm trying to respect his privacy. I've texted to him several times.
Give us your take on just his contribution to this country. He has obviously served in the military. His entire family has, and he's spent well over 30 years now in Congress and the U.S. Senate.
Well, you can't minimize what he's done in his effort to to serve the country. I mean, what he did in Vietnam was heroic and great. I met him shortly after he won Congress, his first seat, for the first time representing East Valley, and right back to when I was elected. It was very interesting. I on a flight. He always that.
Congressman, I think we're going to have to interrupt. We're having a difficult time with the phone connection there, but I do appreciate you taking the time to be with us. You know, it's interesting. He leaves no doubt that he wants to return to the Senate. And I remember after the 2008 campaign talking with one of his press people, and they said even after the election, he didn't take a day off. Yeah. Not one. After a grueling presidential campaign, he just keeps going. There's nobody who works harder in the U.S. Senate, and his absence will be greatly felt. Certainly. A 6-term senator, a former prisoner of war, somebody who has represented Arizona and represented our country in so many unimaginable ways. This is a fight that he is going to fight, and I have no doubt that he's going to fight it with everything that he's got. So, again, Senator John McCain diagnosed with brain cancer. That news coming out just about an hour ago. So we'll keep you posted on what we hear and any new developments as they come into our newsroom.